Hi lads, ladies, freaks of nature. Today, the video's going to be a bit different. First off, spectacles. I'm not wearing any makeup. What's going to happen is you're going to look at my uneven, porous face and you're going to like it. The second thing that's different is I'm not working off a script, which is really weird, and I actually feel very strange right now. I was just like got all set up and I sat here and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Basically what's happening is I've had a terrible few days. See, the thing is I'm always in pain. Or like the overwhelming majority of the time I'm in pain. And most of the time I can kind of hack that because it's just my normal. But for the last few days, everything in my body went wrong at once. And right now I'm getting particular pain like in these joints, which I think are called your distal interphalangeal pharyngeal joints. This is an unscripted video. I can be wrong. They have been a problem for the last year. But normally I can just sort of take a week away from the computer and it's not too bad, but lately they've just not stopped hurting at all, and I can't type, and that's on top of all of the other pain that I normally experience. So I was just sort of like, well, I can't write a script anyway, so I may as well just try skipping it and see what happens. So far it's going terribly. So basically, a lot of people have noticed that I wear gloves. In basically every single video that I do, you'll probably see me either wearing these or some kind of arm covering, and it's not actually for fashion. I mean, it looks cool, but that's not why I wear it. They're actually extremely impractical because you have to take them on and off every single time you go to the toilet or need to wash your hands or eat food or whatever, so they're really, really impractical, and I actually wouldn't probably wear them if I didn't have to. They're a disability aid, and in case the rambling that I just did just then didn't convey the point, yeah, I'm a disabled person. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this in passing before, but I haven't really talked about it in detail. And I've wanted to do a proper video on disability for a while. Yeah, lately I think the more difficult and complicated topics have been hard for me, and I don't really want to talk about systemic ableism right now. I'll get to it. I will talk about it because it's not talked about enough. But I just I've learned a lot over the years because I've had health problems of this kind since I was 14. So I've had a long time to learn a lot of coping mechanisms, a lot of different ways of speeding up recovery, at least to my level of normal. The medical community is so bad when it comes to dealing with certain kinds of conditions that the way that I have learned how to function is through other people who have similar conditions that I have. Either people I know and often people on the internet. So for example, a few weeks back, I came across a random Twitter post of an ehlers danlos sufferer with this very interesting stuff on their hands, ring splints or something. So I've ordered them because these are the joints that are really going right now. Hopefully those will arrive in the post. I was really hoping they'd arrive today and I could show them off in this video, but they haven't. Yeah, I learn coping mechanisms through other disabled people. 90% of the useful stuff I know is from other disabled people, not from doctors. So I thought, with everything I've learned, I have a small platform, so I thought I would make a series of videos on disability, physical coping mechanisms, and then the correlation between physical and mental health and how the two things interact with one another and how to deal with that, and the failures of the medical community, and maybe what medicines are good to search for, and maybe a bit of systemic ableism as well. I don't know. This is just the ideas stage. To start off this series, I thought I would tell you basically about my condition, my history with the condition, so how I've progressed from not really having any problems as a child to being this, and also how they affect me now, and how I'm affected now. That should just sort of provide context for the rest of my videos on disability so that you know what kinds of chronic pain and disability I'm referring to, and whether or not your own experiences or those of somebody else, if you're watching these more from a kind of research and education perspective, whether it maps on neatly. So, I'm openly looking at my notes. Here are my notes. I'm not gonna pretend that I'm memorizing anything. To begin, what are these conditions that I claim to have? Well, I'm glad you asked. See, I thought I didn't have very many to say, actually, but now I'm looking at the list and I'm like, oh, that's quite a lot. I'll start off with what I've been diagnosed with. I have officially been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is a kind of neurological disorder. Basically, as far as I understand it, characterized by your body sort of essentially giving you real pain, but in responses to sort of stimuli that it shouldn't. So, for example, I'm hypersensitive to cold temperatures. I can't hack being in the cold. If my body is in the cold, it's like my brain starts shutting down and I will start like feeling a lot of pain, even though like cold shouldn't... I mean, nobody likes the cold that much, but it shouldn't make you suffer in the same way that I do. Really good thing that I live in the UK. However, even though I have officially been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, my actual symptoms line up a lot more closely with EDS or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is like a connective tissue disorder. On the lower end of the scale, it manifests as just sort of extreme hypermobility. So I'm very obviously hypermobile and like really flexible. Like my whole family is quite flexible, but I'm the only one who gets like a lot of pain in the hypermobile joints. And on the extreme end of the scale, it can cause like issues with your internal organs because like the skin is too thin or something. I haven't like done any research or anything before doing this video, so I might have to like add things. I mean, I knew all this at one point, but I don't know it now. I'm just doing it. It's fine. We can do this. So those are the two like main physical things that I have. My doctor does think that I have both Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and fibromyalgia. But the latter is easier to diagnose me with. The former, you have to go be seen by the Ehlers-Danlos people and they blood test you or something. According to my first rheumatologist, I couldn't get seen and diagnosed because too many people have the condition, and according to the second rheumatologist who I asked for a second opinion, I couldn't get seen because not enough people have the condition. Neither of those statements make sense, but we'll talk about the failures of the medical system in another video. So I suffer chronic pain, obviously, all over in a kind of fibromyalgia kind of way. It feels like it's been so hard trying to describe this pain because it's not like any other kind of pain I've ever sort of really experienced prior to feeling like this. Mostly it's like really extreme pins and needles. It's like if you have pins and needles in your fingertips, mostly in my fingertips, that's permanent, but it can be anywhere, but it's painful. Like, it's like electric. It's like low-key, low-level electric pain. That's what it's like. But then I also just have like joint pain in my joints. And sometimes random bits of my body will just hurt. It just without explanation. It will just be like there. I'll just get like a stabbing pain for no reason, and then it's gone. Along with those conditions, and probably as symptoms of those conditions, I have something that really seems a lot like chronic fatigue. I just am so tired all the time, and I get a lot of insomnia and sleep paralysis and regular nightmares, which is probably something to do with the fact that I also have sort of anxiety, PTSD type stuff. And some other conditions, which I'm not going to go into because I don't want to, like, relay my entire medical history and everything wrong with me right now, but it's more just that all of that I've just said, I think is relevant because it all like, feeds into each other. Oh, I also have Raynaud's, you know, when you're out in the cold and then your fingers, like, turn white and swell up. I don't know if that's relevant. Anyway, there it is. I think that's everything. They did the census recently, and my house filled out the census form together. And I tried to put my health as fair, and my housemates were not having it. They were just like, no, I was going to ask if you wanted me to put bad or very bad. Chronic health conditions do like warp your perception of what is normal quite a lot. My history with these conditions. So when I was a kid, I was basically completely normal physical health-wise. I didn't have any particular issues that were noticeable. I was mostly fine up until the age of about 14. Basically, whatever age it is, when they start giving you those massive, like 3-hour long exams, the entire thing is timed so that you have to be writing constantly. Otherwise you will fail the exam. It's so inhumane. Like, no, there is no argument for what that could prepare you for in the real world. It's so messed up. Anyway, that was when the problems first really started happening, because everyone got badly hurt, really, doing those. Like, everybody came out kind of being like, my wrist is so sore. But I was affected worse than everyone else, and I'd have to take a long time after the exams to recover. So we went to the doctors and they just kind of said it's RSI, repetitive strain injury, which a lot of people get, especially musicians, and I did used to play the guitar and piano and stuff, so it tracked. But the problem just sort of continued getting worse over time. The first thing to go was my ability to write with a pen. The kind of pain that affects you around here, it's usually fine motor actions that trigger that kind of pain. So writing with a pen is a very sort of like I'm not going to do it actually, it hurts. It's a very pinched movement that really triggers that kind of pain. So that kind of went years ago. I can't remember the last time I wrote with a pen besides just like signing my name. I can do that. It's really awkward whenever I go in anywhere and there's forms to fill in, because they'll be like, here's this form to fill in. I have to be like, can't write with a pen. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, are you sure you're not just making a fuss? And I'm like, if I was gonna like fake something to get someone else to do something for me, why would it be filling in a form? So I lost the ability to write, and then I lost the ability to draw, because like that was like a bit looser, I guess, but then that went too. And then I lost the ability to play guitar. That was a low point. Up till this point, like, it'd always gone in like phases. Like, sometimes I'd be able to play and sometimes I wouldn't. But if I talked to anyone else who had RSI and I'd say, hey, how do you cope with this? They'd often say, oh, I just stop for 10 minutes if it starts to hurt, and then I start again. And I'm like, I have to stop for several days minimum. And when I say I lost the ability to do stuff, what I mean by that is not that it would be physically impossible, but that doing it would cause so much pain, so much lasting pain that could take like a week or more to recover from, that it was no longer worth doing. And it wasn't, by the way, due to like the way I was playing or due to the way I was writing or whatever. I tried many different things, many different ways of writing, many different ways of drawing, and many different ways of playing guitar. I tried so many things to try and alleviate the pain, but nothing worked. So yeah, it did get me down, because I was sad. That was like a big part of how I express myself, and also I was addicted to performing, and not being able to play guitar anymore meant I couldn't really perform. But I got over it. I moved into electronic music. I started learning how to produce, and I started performing spoken word, and just sort of shouting angry like poetry at people, which later evolved into like sort of rap stuff, I guess. I just adapted. Like, once you realize you can't do something, there's no point like sitting around feeling too sad about it. But yeah, I managed okay mentally through all of this somehow. I've gradually customized my entire sort of workspace. I use a curved keyboard and a weird like vertical mouse and all sorts of stuff to make using a computer easier for me, because that is unsurprisingly painful too if I do it for too long, or right now if I do it at all. For a long time, my pain just sort of existed in these weird sort of miscellaneous ups and downs. I would occasionally experience so much pain in my wrist that I couldn't do things like wash my own hair or pick things up, so I would need help with that, but it tended to go in phases. It wasn't usually like something that was there all the time, but as time went on, the bigger those phases got. And there were other things as well, like there were just the random pain across my body could cause problems in its own way. So like, for example, one thing I would still do get is just very, very sharp pain in my lower back. that is so painful that it's difficult to walk around. I remember one particular incident where this happened, where two of my friends who'd just moved in together were out furniture shopping, and I was chumming them, and I started getting really bad lower back pain while we were furniture shopping, and like it was the best thing to be doing to like when you get lower back pain, because I just kept like sitting in chairs and just being like, oh, I'll just try this one out. This is a really good chair. I'm just gonna stay here. Like you two just walk around the shop and like, you know, see what's up. I'm just gonna vibe with this chair. So this kind of like vague, unclear pain that wasn't coming from like a clear source just went on and on and on and on up until 2 or 3 years back, when I experienced a pain in my neck that was so extreme that like I had to get taken to hospital. And it turned out that like one of the discs in my neck was protruding into like the spinal cord. That was agonizing. It is definitely one of the worst pains I've ever felt in my life. I was bedridden for a while, and like it affected me in so many like small subtle ways. Like for example, I used to always have my hair tied back, but the pain in my neck was so bad that I had to start wearing my hair down because I had to spread the weight around. Like the weight of my hair bunched up at the back of my neck was enough to like trigger more pain. I couldn't lift anything during that time. Like a plate would be enough to make it go again. It was bad, but in a way I was kind of relieved that it happened, because people started believing that there was something wrong with me. Nobody ever really said, like, just said to me, you're making this up. But that was always the thing that was implied. Both by doctors and by friends and family. For example, the way it was usually done with doctors is they'd kind of look at me and they'd be like, well, we've run tests and nothing's come up. You know, the only implication there is that, like, well, there's nothing wrong with you, therefore you are lying. Whereas I was like, okay, well, maybe nothing's come up, but the pain is happening, and just that sort of basic disbelief in your own experience, that's really common among GPs, unfortunately. And with friends and families, it was kind of similar. Like if I could do something one day, for example, and then I couldn't do it the next day, a common thing would be sort of like, oh, but you did that yesterday. What's the problem? And you know, this sort of understanding that the pain fluctuated, and sometimes I could do things and sometimes I couldn't do things, and also most importantly that sometimes I can physically do something, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea. That kind of understanding didn't sink in with a lot of people until I literally ended up in hospital. I never fully recovered from that. Like, my rheumatologist assured me that I would. She assured me that as I grew older, all my spine things would, like there's little, like, squishy discs or something in your spine, and when you get older, they get more brittle, and it's harder for them to, there will be more technical details about this stuff in future videos, but that hasn't happened yet. All that's happened so far is that particular problem, it got better enough that eventually I could like move around again freely, and I can lift a plate. But I can't lift, for example, a full kettle. Like, I mean, I can, but I have to have like I've got to be like in a stance. My stomach muscles must be clenched. I've got to have all my energy, all my focus on like lifting this full kettle, and it just makes more sense if I don't lift full kettles. And it's the same with I used to I can't carry my laptop anymore, like across my shoulder. I can't carry it. It's just no. Yeah, and various other things have just sort of continued to get worse, like the pain in my actual joints. Since then, they've been, like, slightly more willing to run scans on me and stuff, and those scans have shown, like, similar, like, disc protrusions in my lower back as well, which explains kind of why I've been getting that kind of pain. But the reason why my doctor thinks I have both EDS and fibromyalgia is that some of my symptoms seem neurological and not physiological, like the spine thing. And therefore, it's not always clear with me where one thing ends and the other thing begins. But all of the pain is 100% real. Around the same time as the hospital incident, like, I was gradually developing, like, anxiety, and then shortly afterwards had, like, full-on PTSD. And those things definitely, they don't help. So finally, I'll talk about just where that leaves me today. As you may have guessed, I am in probably the worst place. I'm not the worst that I've ever been. Like, the worst that I've ever been would have been, like, that particular hospital incident. Shoo. But I'm probably at my worst sort of day-to-day health that I ever have been. My pain levels and types vary. They go up and down. And when they're bad, when my sort of nervous system is really heightened, I end up with increased sensitivity to things like sounds. Just regular noise will be quite difficult for me to deal with. Physical sensations will feel different. So, like, my partner says, like, I'm like a cat sometimes, because they'll sort of do something nice to me. And some days I will like it, but if I'm having a kind of heightened, like, a nervous system day, it will feel really bad, and I'll kind of flinch away and have a kind of, just swat. I get tinnitus sometimes as well, like, more often when that's happening, because I have kind of general tinnitus anyway, which is really unfair because I've taken such good care of my ears. I was always that nerd at concerts who's like, no, I'm going to wear earplugs, and I still have tinnitus, but it gets worse when I'm having, like, a bad phase, and my sensitivity to cold is just permanent. I can't go outside right now. It's May and it is still freezing, and I would love to go see some friends, but it's too cold. I can't be outside for more than, like, 10 minutes at a time, and I have to be wearing full winter gear. It's really weird. It's like if I get cold, my body just sort of shuts down. I stop being able to, like, really think very clearly, and everything goes stiff, and whatever it does, if I get too cold, like, the effects of that can last for several days, even if I've been sufficiently warmed up afterwards. In terms of what I can and can't do, like, I can't do any of those things that I mentioned earlier, and using a computer for me right now is difficult. I get around that with dictation software sometimes, but that can be a faff to use, especially when, like, if I'm in a really sort of acute place like I am now. Like, not whole body, I'm recovering a little bit, but like, these joints are still horribly bad. And even if with the best, like, dictation software in the world, you still have to go back in and edit things, and it's safer for me to just give myself nothing to do on days like that. Like I say, I'm still waiting for these rings, and they've got, like, really good reviews, and we'll see and hope that they make a difference. And I do, at this point in my life, require a carer, which has just happened organically in terms of, like, making food, or even right now, like, very basic things like getting me up in the morning. I'm so lethargic and low capacity first thing in the morning that I can barely move, and my partner has to come and, like, physically drag me out of bed. That's something that I rely on these days. I might be able to get by myself, but it would be, like, a real struggle, and having a carer does make that a lot easier for me. I experienced something that a lot of chronically ill and disabled people and mentally ill people will probably be able to relate to, which is the sort of work crash cycle, meaning that when you're very used to having very low energy, on the rare times you get energy, you use all of it at once and then crash really badly, and then the cycle just keeps repeating itself. So pacing is super important and something I've been working on a lot over the last couple of years, and it can be incredibly frustrating as well, because sometimes, like, a lot of the time, my head is just full of so many ideas, and I can't physically translate them into anything because my body is too much of a mess, or I'm just too fatigued. All of that having said, I am not unhappy. I'm actually, like, probably in one of the best places that I've been in my life, all things considered. Like I say, I have a carer. My partners are super supportive and understanding. I mean, I say partners, this is, like, actually, it's not always partners, sometimes it's, like, super close friends, but for me, like, you know, if you're polyamorous, the distinction between, like, what precisely is a partner and what precisely is a friend can get very, like, I have close people who get all sorts of aspects of this, most of whom are like unwell themselves in one way or another, but queer circles tend to be good for that kind of thing. So it's really not as bad as it may seem from everything I've said, but at the same time it's sometimes difficult to remember that not everyone has these kinds of problems, and I forget how weird it is to people when I'm just like, oh yeah, I used to be able to play guitar once and I physically can't anymore. And that for some people that's like quite a big I mean, it was a big deal for me too, but I have dealt with. I think that basically sort of sums it up. If any of what I've said resonates with you or sounds like something you would like to learn more about, then stay tuned, because I want to do more videos basically going into more in depth in a lot of the subjects that I've touched on and probably rambled on a bit in this video, and discuss them properly, discuss them with correct terminology. Yeah, really lay out everything that has helped me and everything that I think could help other people. Oh, I forgot to say about like the whole thing of this video is like the gloves, and I forgot to actually mention about them. So the reason I wear them is because they kind of have a sort of almost like a tubey grip, but just a bit less intense, and it feels like they kind of hold everything in place a little bit. And they also just help keep this area of my body really warm, and that's, like I've said, my sensitivity to cold is such that if my forearms are exposed in anything other than like blazing summer heat, then I will get this sort of thing that feels like the inside of my arm is freezing up, and that gradually like travels up my arm. It was very validating to, when I first sort of started YouTube, I also became active on Twitter and interacted with a lot of other people who have similar disabilities to me, and I see that a lot of other people have independently got the same idea as me. More commonly, you'll see kind of compression gloves being used, and I find those useful too, but they usually end about here, so they don't have the same kind of like warmth effect, and I really need that. But basically just my first bit of information in this video is that if you have hand problems, some kind of glove is probably going to help you, and is also probably not going to be recommended by your doctor, so just try different things out, see what works. A lot of people have asked where I get mine. Amazon and eBay mostly. They're pretty bad quality. There are much nicer ones you can get on Etsy and stuff. If you want one specifically like these, like for me, I have to have fingers. If it just cuts across there, it doesn't have the same effect. Like I might be able to get away with that in summer, but not most of the time. So if you want ones like this, then don't type fingerless gloves. Don't type fingerless gloves. Type half finger long gloves, and that should get you things like this. And of course, I have revealed in this video that they're very much a disability aid, but like I appreciate that they look cool, and don't feel like you can't wear fingerless gloves because they're useful for people with disabilities. Yeah, that's me. That's my disability. I've probably, despite rambling on and on and on for as long as I have, I've probably actually left a lot of important stuff out. We'll get to it later, but this is just to give you an overview and let you know what's going on and why I don't upload videos very often. If you want to help me make some more videos, you can become a monthly Ko-fi supporter on my Ko-fi. You can also help me a great deal by liking this video, subscribing, commenting, and sharing it to all of your disabled friends. And your non-disabled friends, actually, because they need to know about this stuff.